In Manitoba, the search for the remains of at least 2 murdered First Nations women has entered a critical new phase. The bodies of 26-year-old Marcedes Myran and 39-year-old Morgan Harris are believed to have been dumped at the Prairie Green Landfill outside Winnipeg. Now, Premier Wab Kinew says a targeted section of the landfill has been identified. He's also warning the next stage is likely to be painstaking and difficult. The CBC's Cameron McIntosh has the details for us from Winnipeg.
Well, right now, the Premier says that this search has entered phase 4. And what that means is that the actual digging for the remains has begun. It began at 6 o'clock this morning at Prairie Green Landfill, just north of Winnipeg, looking for dismembered remains of both Morgan Harris and Marcedes Myran. Now, they were believed to have been killed in spring 2022. It was 2 years ago this week that the Winnipeg police announced that these women had been killed and that they believed that their bodies, that their remains had been taken to the Prairie Green landfill and subsequently buried. At the time, they said that they didn't believe it was necessary to search or practical to search. They had enough DNA to build a case against a person who is now being convicted in four murders. They also said that too much time had passed, that quite simply these remains had been too far buried. This resulted in a very long political process with the families and Indigenous leaders really pushing on the previous Manitoba government and the current Manitoba government to begin that search. So today that search has begun. Basically, they're in the ground. They have isolated a specific point inside this landfill where they believe it's proper to be searching. Just given some of the material that they've already moved, they've found newspapers, dates, receipts with dates on them. So that's giving them a sense that they're in the right area. Now, Anna Macklin, she's the project director on this. We asked her a little bit earlier today about what they expect to be finding.
As we start to find items of interest, such as receipts or papers that have dates and addresses, we'll be continually looking at that information to see what it's telling us and whether or not we're in the right location of interest. It's also important to note that within a landfill, because of the compaction, it creates an anaerobic state, so things don't typically decompose. So we are expecting that if we do find remains, there may be a possibility of soft tissue still intact as well.
Everything that was previously proffered as an excuse, I think, has been systematically disproven when people tried to argue against searching the landfill. We're delivering this on budget. We're delivering this with the utmost of safety for the workers. We have managed the asbestos situation without issue. We are identifying material at the level in the proper date range and in a good enough condition for us to be able to know what we're talking about here.
So a lot of optimism that if there are indeed human remains in this area, that they will find them and they will be able to identify them. But they are saying that this could be a long and slow process. They're prepared to keep this dig going into 2026.
And Cam, how did we get to this point?
Well, you know, it really began as a personal family tragedy. 4 different families have lost people in this. 4 different women were killed that were not known to each other. These were 4 separate murders that happened in very quick succession to one another, but they were separate murders. So when the police announced 2 years ago that they would not be going into the landfill, this really got the families upset. Indigenous leadership here in Manitoba also got upset, and really we saw a big political push from the families and from the Indigenous leaders, and they pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where this actually became an issue in last year's provincial election. The previous provincial government here in Manitoba had basically campaigned saying we are not going to go to the expense of searching through this landfill because they felt it was too dangerous. So now here we are, we're with a new government that promised to look. Today, Wab Kinew, the Premier, is saying that when someone goes missing in Manitoba, they will be searched for. Right now, that's what's happening.
The CBC's Cameron McIntosh in Winnipeg.